everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Don't Give Up the Ship podcast. This is episode 78. Today, I am talking to Chief Murphy. He's an MAC that you may or may not have seen on social media. And he's behind the campaign that it's a hashtag / brand that he's creating. And it's called No Fat Chiefs. So I first saw it and thought it was kind of a joke. Somebody was trolling Chiefs or whatever. And then I looked into it and realized he was a Chief, and then looked into it further and thought there was something interesting worth talking about there. So when you're listening, keep in mind a couple of things. One, this is a tool, right? So the idea that he has, it's a tool that won't work for everyone. And we talk about that a little bit. And that also the understanding going in is that using this terminology can turn some people off for obvious reasons. And that's understood, and it's also okay because the word choices he uses are intentional, and he wants it to feel like you're being confronted and you're made uncomfortable by a thing that isn't necessarily negative, but it's something that needs to be addressed. And we talk about the hows and whys of all those things. There's nuance to it, so just keep that in mind, and stay open-minded while you're listening to his intent and the things that he's doing. Because at the end of the day, I think it's a net gain for a lot of people. And I think what he's trying to do is coming from a great place, and he's definitely doing some great things. Again, it's not going to be for everybody. And he knows that, admits that. We talk about it. But at the same time, it's definitely something that works for some people. And it's something I respond to in a way where it's like, when I have a problem, I feel like I need to get confronted and called out on it. And this is kind of the motivation that he has for coming from the place that he is and doing what he's doing. But I thought it was interesting. It was definitely different. And it's a little controversial probably, but I thought it was definitely worth talking about. And I had a great time talking to Chief Murphy. So check it out. So yeah, like we talked about, man, just start with kind of your background and who you are, what you do, kind of thing, in as much detail as you want, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah, Kevin Murphy, originally from Brockton, Massachusetts, about just outside Boston. I've been in the Navy for about 17 years. Came in undesignated. I was undez for about 4 years. Got in trouble. I was trying to go SWIC. And the MA Master Chief asked if I wanted to be an MA. I got into a fight. I was on the Lincoln up in Everett, Washington.
Yeah.
And then did my restriction, did my deployments. I did 2 deployments, cranked twice. Once on restriction, once not on restriction. Then went down to security after, struck MA. They told me I'd never see a ship again, which I was completely okay with. Mm-hmm. And then they sent me across the pier to the John C. Stennis, which was fun. So I did about 8 years at sea, back to back. Definitely different going back as a MA. Yeah. I had amazing leadership on the enlisted side. Mm-hmm. Officer side, not so much. Really, I feel like my enlisted leadership on the Lincoln and Stennis really molded me to who my foundation, I guess. How to they didn't really stress a lot. They didn't take things serious. Both undesignated side and the master at arms side. After that, I left, went down to San Diego. My son's mother was newly commissioned as a nurse. Mm-hmm. She was an ensign down here. Did 4 years down here. I was working at NCIS, at the field office and Navy Region Southwest. Navy Region Southwest wasn't great, just basic MA duties, and then NCIS was probably the best fun and most where I feel like I learned the most. Yeah. Challenge. It was definitely a different job where I'm an inner city kid. I was the only white kid in my neighborhood. Different upbringing for sure. But so when I went to NCIS, they basically turned me into the kid I was before I joined the Navy.
Okay, and used you for Like
buying narcotics.
Yeah, got it.
On base, on the ships.
Yeah.
That was a eye opener to
Yeah.
what really is going on in the Navy. And then, you know, during that time, my wife and I or ex-wife were struggling a lot. And we later on the podcast we can get over that part, but we split after that, and then I transferred to Kings Bay, Georgia, the PRP program, and I was going through like a lot of counseling and anger management stuff, and I got into another fight and got kicked out of Kings Bay, and then I went to CRG2 in Bahrain, and then I came back to San Diego. Picked up Chief here in San Diego, and then now I'm at Mesron 3 over in Imperial Beach.
What is a Mesron? I'm a submariner, so I don't know what any of that means.
It's the expeditionary side, so the green, you know, riverine, intercoastal water. I'm the Raven program manager over there, so we do flight line security, where it's an Air Force program. Basically, everything you're seeing right now on the TV in Afghanistan, where the people are surrounding the planes, it's our job to not allow that to happen.
Gotcha.
We'll fly into countries that don't have security or a traditional airport and provide security for the aircraft.
Oh, nice. Okay, got it. Awesome. So I found out about you just from a picture randomly, and I don't remember. It got shared somewhere or by someone that I know. We probably have a mutual friend or something, and it's a picture of you with a mouthpiece that says "No Fat Chiefs" on it.
Yep.
And when I saw it, I was just like, "What is this?" And started kind of looking at it, kind of like just curious about what it was in general. And I also half assumed you were like a salty E5 or something.
I definitely have aged well.
Yeah, you do. You look younger than 17 years in the Navy. That's for sure. So yeah, when I saw that, I had to figure out like what that was and why that person was doing it. And then I found out you were a chief, and I was like, well, this is interesting, because I spend a lot of time on the podcast talking about basically like how we can improve the mess as an organization, and then how like individual chiefs can do better. And it's all leadership development based, but it's also just like, there's a lot of things that I think that we accept that we shouldn't, right? That
100%.
That we definitely recognize are a problem, but it doesn't seem like people want to talk about it, or there's really like an organizational appetite for change. Like every chief I've ever talked to about it agrees that, yeah, no, that's kind of a problem. But then it seems like when we get this like hive mentality, that people just kind of like, oh yeah, this is just what we do. And it's like, no, like, why are we not talking about this and trying to be better? And so like, talk about like how you got to where you are with this no fat cheese thing, and like what is the idea behind it? Because the other part is like, when I talked to a buddy about it, he was kind of like, oh, I don't know, like basically just because when you say that, it kind of sounds like an attack on chiefs, you know what I mean? So just talk about like how you arrived at that, what it means, what the goals are, stuff like that.
So I think most of us can agree, kind of like we were discussing before, in your career, whatever the case may be, you fall off, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like the running joke was, you know, FEP was the fat enlisted program. Or you had a chief that was overweight, or a chief that is just walking around drinking coffee and you know, down in the chief's mess, eating the amazing but food that, you know, what it does to your body.
Right.
And I definitely think it's a little different being a master at arms. I think maybe corpsmen, CBs. I don't want to forget any rates, but a lot of the rates that maybe are expeditionary or forward deployed. Carrying a gun and a kit every day definitely changes your perspective on it.
Right.
But then I can go back and be like, no, that it shouldn't just be us, because even on ships and boats, you know, subs, everybody's a firefighter.
Right.
And we need to be the leadership that your junior sailors look at and say, I want to go to war with that person, or I want to run into if I run into a burning room with that chief, I know he or she is going to hold their own and can call the shots when shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get insecure when they hear that, and they say, well, what about their career and advancement and admin and stuff? Like, I think all that's extremely important. Obviously, like, paperwork can make or break anything in the Navy, it seems like, but I feel like we forget why we're really here, because a lot of things don't happen for us. We've had a very peaceful, since World War II, for the Navy, a majority of the time. Not saying there hasn't been times for the Navy,
right?
But we've grown accustomed to an easy lifestyle, I feel like. And I want to address it. 40% of the Navy is obese, and this was pre-COVID. That report was pre-COVID, and we also know that CFL has probably hooked their buddies up a couple of times as well. So the numbers should probably be higher than 40%.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
Over half, close to half of the Navy is obese. And we just saw with COVID, obesity was one of the higher risks. So
right.
Half the Navy was already at risk from COVID. Let alone to, let's not forget future health issues that these individuals are going to have. So it doesn't just have to be with Navy. It can be with self as well, self-health.
Yeah.
And I think we both know Chiefs don't like to be called out, right? We're stubborn, we're arrogant, we can be.
And that's that's one of the things that I don't like about us as an institution, is that we do become defensive when called out. And I think that's the exact wrong answer. When somebody's pointing at a deficiency and saying, "Hey, that's a deficiency," it's like, you should be like, "Is it?" Like look down and check it out and evaluate that. Like, maybe they're wrong and they're just hating on you. It happens, but also maybe it's a deficiency and you need 100%.
And I'm guilty of it as well, right? I'm proud. I'm a typical Irish Italian dude from Boston where you can't tell me anything, right? Like, and I too have to take a step back and be like, oh damn, like you have to swallow that, and it hurts. It feels like a big chunk of food going down the wrong pipe, where you're like, I gotta take this on the chin. So we need to, as Chiefs, call each other out, right? Like, that's that's the perspective of the mess. We need to be able to call each other out, hold ourselves accountable, and yes, it starts with us. And I want to take a more direct approach. If anybody's going to call it the Chiefs mess out, it should be a chief. It shouldn't be the officers, and it shouldn't be the E6 and below. It should be a chief.
I agree with you. And I think that, like, when you're talking about stuff like this, like, it feels uncomfortable because it's a thing that it's a deficiency. Like, it's a thing that is a weak area, and by virtue of that pride and like the arrogance and the ego that you talked about earlier, it's like, that those two things don't go together. So it's like, when you have that deficiency and it's there, it's a really uncomfortable thing to acknowledge and then subsequently deal with, because it's really hard, man, when you get out of shape. And like we talked about before we started recording, where I've had several times in my life and career that I've gotten in pretty garbage shape, like, and a lot of it centered, and we'll talk about the bandwidth issue later, but like, a lot of it centered around my inability to balance well. It's never been something I'm good at, man. When I'm on a deploying unit, it's like that all I do is work. And so when at the end of the day, it's like, am I going to sleep or am I going to PT? I'm going to sleep. Like,
100%.
And so it's tough to do that, but I always circled back to, like, it's like, is this a thing that I'm just going to sit here and live with? Because I'm not as happy as I normally am. I'm more stressed than I normally am.
Right now? Or do you talk about in general?
No, like when I'm out of shape, like when I find myself in that position, like I'm not as happy as I normally am. I don't feel as good. I don't like how I look. Like, all those things factor in, and I want to be healthy long term. Like, I've always been acutely aware of health, and then turns out I like had the cancer thing that we talked about before we recorded too earlier. Like, I mean, it's a little over a year ago now. So that even that now I'm even more like sensitive to it. So it's really difficult to like get back into shape. Like when 100%. You find yourself in a bad spot, it's really hard to get. It's super easy to get out of shape, but it's super difficult to get back in shape. So,
and I think someone told me this: you change through inspiration or desperation.
Yep.
And you know, the choice is yours on that. Like, and some of us need desperation.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's just like any other bad habit, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever the case may be. Like sometimes you don't learn until you hit rock bottom. Kind of like we were talking about the BMC. Like he didn't learn his stuff until he hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I made another post on my Facebook and the other Chiefs page, and I said, you know, if the word fat and no fat Chiefs offends you, like I apologize. I apologize that you're there in your life that a word really, really breaks you down this bad.
Yeah.
And if it does, then cool. Like we've gotten to this point and we've identified where you feel insecure.
Yeah.
Now, like what I need you to do is go look in that mirror or just talk to yourself and own that, or like accept that, because until you do, you're not going to make a change.
Right. And also like it seems like the word is negative, right? And I mean, it kind of is like, like based on what we're describing and how we're describing it, but like, it's like like you were saying earlier, and this is something I wanted to like come back to, was the fact that we're a war fighting organization, that our manifest destiny, the only reason we exist is to kill people and break their stuff. And we've lost sight of that, I think, in the peacetime Navy, because for a very long time, the instruments that we deploy for the most part, like the primary platforms that we deploy to like affect war on people, on other countries, haven't actually been engaged in that type of thing outside of like launching cruise missiles and stuff,
right?
Like distance stuff, for a long time. And so what you find is like, if we're ever in a spot where we have to really fight the ship, like really do, like I interviewed James Parlier, he was the CMC on the Cole when it got bombed. And if you haven't listened to that episode, it's called Determined Response. I'd have to go look for the number, but
okay, I'll look that up.
Lord, like it took me hours to recover from recording that, where I just like, my mind was blown just listening to him tell this story. And it's like if that were to happen to us today, how would we deal with it? Like I'm confident that like in the submarine force, on the units that I've been attached to, or I go out on a ton of them now to do inspections, it's like, I'm confident that they know how to fight a fire and that they're very proficient at doing it. But if there was a really bad casualty where like a whole compartment is on fire, do we have like the physical ability to sustain that firefighting effort like the way that we would need to? And especially on a submarine, it's an enclosed space. Within 2 minutes, you can't see 6 inches in front of your face. Like it gets bad quick.
Right.
So if we had a real bad casualty on a submarine, it's like, do we have the physical ability to sustain that effort and to do the best that we possibly can? And then by virtue of like, so we're not just talking about the casualty itself, we're talking about like, if this happened because we got shot at, because you don't get to like fight the fire and not do anything else, because then we would have to turn around and continue to fight the ship. Like maybe we're fighting back against an adversary, maybe we're recovering other systems, maybe we have to repair the gear and do all these other things and then go continue doing the mission. It's like, do we have that type of like endurance and resilience in us right now? I don't know. Like, and I don't want to learn that lesson the hard way. So it's like,
that's what I'm trying to prove as well with like combatives in the Navy as well, at least for the master arms rate.
Right. Yeah, dude. It makes me nervous. Like, cause I don't know that we have the like mental resilience and just the actual like training required. And then also I talk a lot about like morale as a result of, so like on submarines, we do an absurd amount of training. Like it's the primary focus of everything is like training and qualifications, which is, it's great to a point, but like you get to this place where we do it so much that it starts to suck the life out of people. And if you have like low morale, you're going to have low engagement and low effort. And it doesn't really matter how much training you did, even though that does help. It's like, if you get a low level of engagement and effort when they're doing the thing, either when like we're doing an inspection or when it's real life, it's like that's bad too. Like you're gonna get you're gonna have a unit that's not fighting at like their peak ability. They're gonna regress to their lowest level of training. Yes, absolutely. But they're also not going to be putting the effort in at the level that they. It's just like
well, you talk about the lowest level of training. Like I don't know what it's like on a sub, but I can tell you as an MA, we train to pass inspection.
So we definitely do that. Don't get me wrong, but we also there's a lot of it translates. We definitely train because we're anticipating that inspection, because we can't light the submarine on fire on purpose to see if we're proficient at firefighting. But it's like when there are actual fires, the response is very good and very quick and generally keeps us out of trouble.
I think it's also different for you guys on a sub because you're like, holy crap, I don't know how deep you guys go, but
yeah,
we're 200 feet under the water. We need to put this fire out.
Oh, there's
a rush. There's a reason to put the fire out.
Yeah, there's a special level of motivation for sure, because like the whole thing is trying to kill you at all times. You're trying to keep water out of the people tank. There's high pressure air, pressurized hydraulic systems, like a nuclear reactor. Like everything's trying to kill you all the time.
Right.
So there's definitely a special sense of urgency when that stuff comes up. But I don't know, man. Like also so you're saying like training to pass inspections. And I think a lot of that training will translate to some things, but then like how many submarines are going to be really ready to fight if another submarine starts shooting torpedoes at you? Like,
it's a fight or flight moment for sure.
Yeah, it's like, and then you're dealing with potential flooding or fires or whatever while you're still fighting, and it's just like, and we do simulate some of that stuff in preparation for an inspection that focuses on the tactical readiness stuff, but. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not as concerned about the actual like knowledge and proficiency of doing the action. I'm concerned about if it was real, like the physical demands and mental demands and lack of sleep, and just like, do you have the endurance and just grit to fight hurt? Like, do we have the toughness required to do that thing in real life? And it's like, a large part, like I was reading a book, I did a podcast on part of it where it was basically talking about how fatigue makes cowards. Like where in combat, a soldier or a unit of soldiers, when they're fatigued, you're going to see people get scared as a result. And it's just like, but if they're well trained and they're well conditioned, they're not going to do that, or at least not nearly as quickly. And you can put the special kind of demand on that unit because they have the endurance and toughness and grit to continue the fight. And that's the kind of stuff that I've been thinking a lot about, like how and why we don't evaluate people on their ability to effectively fight a war. And it kind of, I'm like, why? Like, that's all we're here for, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like,
I don't know how you feel like, or if it can relate to this, but, for, again, being an MA or even expeditionary, we do a lot of combatives. So, and I know you practice jiu-jitsu, so
I am a one-stripe white belt. So
you're a savage. Then. You're a savage. So like, I don't know how you feel it could equate to or relate to jiu-jitsu and combatives being a firefighter in a crappy situation like that. I don't because there's times where you're getting choked out and you're like, holy shit, or you're getting punched in the face during. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to swear.
You're good.
Like Muay Thai or boxing, you're getting hit, and it's either you cover up and you tell the dude you're done, or you block and you fight back. Like, so I don't know if stuff like this where you stress an individual out and you get to see if he or she is ready to fight back when you're in. This is the thing too, when you're in a gym, jiu-jitsu, boxing, you can get hurt, but you're in a violent,
controlled environment.
Yes. Where it can still be done safely. And I don't know if you feel like this, like where a combatives could train an individual mentally and psychologically to get through a harder situation like that. As an MA, I do feel we can.
Yeah, I think it can. And I don't think it needs to be combatives. I definitely love it. Like I've never I did CrossFit and I got really into Olympic weightlifting. Like I love doing CrossFit, but I've never been an engine guy. Like my endurance is kind of like I pick up heavy things and put them down. That's what I'm doing. So like Olympic weightlifting, because I love technique based things too, which is why I'm now obsessed with jiu-jitsu. But like I loved the knowledge that I'll never be like done learning about this thing. Like it'll never be perfect. Like when I do a squat snatch, it's like, it's a really complicated, nuanced lift. A lot of people have a hard time doing it, and I was really good at it, but I was never perfect at it, and I was constantly working on the technique and I loved the idea that technique could overcome like just brute strength as well, which is another thing that translates to jiu-jitsu, where like in the gym I was at, I was probably 190 pounds, but like definitely not the strongest dude there. There were guys deadlifting like 600 pounds. I can't do that. Yeah. But I can squat snatch 215, and they couldn't do that. And I was doing it because I had great technique, not because I was if I was as strong as those guys, I would have been squat snatching 315.
Right.
But like because my technique was so good, I could squat snatch way more than them, and I could clean and jerk like almost more than most of those guys, because that's more of like you can get away with some bad technique with a clean and jerk that you can't when you're snatching. But anyway, a little too much. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but like with jiu-jitsu, it's like kind of the same thing, man. Like I love what I learned from it. I love the adversity of it. I love like, it's one of those things where like when you do a really bad Metcon, when you're doing CrossFit, it's almost as bad. And I think it's jiu-jitsu's worse, but like, it's almost as bad when you get done with like we'll do like flow rolling where we'll rotate, we'll do 5-minute rounds and we'll rotate, where like you do it with one partner, that 5 minutes expires, you do it with another one, and we're doing it with like 6 partners. And so like by the end of that, like you're just wrung out like a dishcloth, man. Like I've never been so completely and utterly destroyed tired as I am when I'm done like doing those flow rolling sessions at the end of a class. Cause you do the class and we do conditioning, we do the technique and drilling, and then we'll like get into the actual like flow rolling, or we'll do these King of the Hills things sometimes or whatever. And it's like by the end of one of those classes, you are so tired, and tired in a way that like unless you've done something,
even sleep. You can't even sleep. Yeah.
Unless you've done something like that, you don't even think it's possible. And so I think there's value in that translates for sure to everywhere in the Navy, where I don't think it needs to be combatives, but I do think that it needs to be something that makes you that level of tired. And I think you could accomplish that with like, I looked up this article because I remembered it vaguely, but because it was a long time ago, but McPon Stevens back in 2016 was trying to introduce this like alternative PRT concept that applied like by warfare community.
And that's what I think it should be.
Exactly. Like I remember loving the idea where you're talking about like expeditionary dudes, like you have to do a fireman's carry with a person while you're in your like all your gear. And then another guy there in SCBAs and FFEs dragging fire hoses a certain distance or whatever. Like, and I think on a submarine, it's like that's where it'll apply the most, is in DC situations, is like a sustained firefighting effort in an FFE and SCBA, where you're dragging the hose. Yeah, you're doing the thing. You're dragging the hose. You gotta maneuver through these really small spaces and all that gear, and then be in a really hot space doing that. It's like, yeah, that's gonna fatigue you really badly, and then you're going to be expected to continue to do your job afterwards. And so in a wartime scenario. So it's like, I think that would be really, really valuable, but I think people have a hard time seeing the value in it when we're not getting shot at.
And again, I think that just goes back to us being so comfortable in what we're doing. And I don't want, it's just like when I'm training my guys, I don't want my guys to have that oh crap moment, I don't want to be here, when it's too late.
Right.
I want them to have that in the mats. I want them to experience the fight or flight moment. I want them to experience the challenge of being physically assaulted and being able to think and get themselves through it.
Right. And yeah, if they're ever in that situation in real life, it feels familiar. Like I've had a 200-pound man on top of me before. Like my wife is 120 pounds, like very athletic, very strong, but she's a petite woman. And so like the thing I love about her doing jiu-jitsu is she get there. there's a ton of just meatballs in this gym, dude.
Yeah.
So like she gets all this experience with these really large dudes trying to like do harm to her effectively through these jiu-jitsu techniques. And so you feel what that feels like. Mm-hmm. And so she has the confidence that if a 220-pound dude gets on top of her, she can get that guy off of her and get away at the very least if she doesn't choke the dude unconscious.
Yeah.
And I love that the idea, just the like peace of mind of knowing that if that ever happened and I wasn't around, mm-hmm. it's like, I know she's at the very least going to be able to get out from under that person and get away. And Absolutely. She knows it too. And it's like,
or defend herself until someone right. else can come and help her.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is just, it's a puzzle that keeps getting bigger each time you go. Like, you think you have a piece for the puzzle, and you're like, "Ooh, look!" And then somebody hits you with something else, and you're like, "Damn it!"
Yeah.
I have a brown belt at our command, another MAC, and mm-hmm. every time I roll with him, it's just constant reminder of, oh, I'm not that tough.
How much more I have to learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
I rolled with a second class that's he's on a carrier locally, and he's a 4-stripe blue belt, and I'm like brand new, but I thought I was kind of figuring some stuff out, and I was doing really well against all the other guys at the gym, but a lot of them are white belts because the gym opened and it was brand new, and so like pretty much everybody there is a white belt. Mm-hmm. But this kid came in, and I was going to go with him, and I study, dude. I'm like on the internet watching videos and like trying to figure out new stuff. And then I come to the gym and try new things or like practice doing a thing better or whatever. And I went and like you're doing like, we were doing a drill where I was on the ground and he was standing up, and he was supposed to get to side control, and I was supposed to prevent it. And so I'm going forward and getting like sleeve grips and trying to do what I normally do. And he just started doing all these things. I didn't even notice he was doing it until I tried to move my leg, and he had a grip on my gi pant and like all these things where it was just like, it was a whole nother world where he was just squashing me because all the things that work against these white belts, like he's like, I know exactly what you're doing. And so like, it's a whole nother level. And yeah, I mean, I had a little success because he took this big long break, so he got tired. But like, it was like that was the only reason. Like this dude was murdering me.
A mental victory for yourself.
Yeah, I had a moment because I kind of stupidly brute strength the sweep, and then he just murked me anyway, and ended up in side control, and I lost. But
or they let you do a move on you because they know what you're doing, just so they can set something else up.
Yeah.
As soon as you land.
Yep. That kind of stuff too. Like because then he ended up sweeping me almost immediately and then was in side control. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, I don't understand. I'm not a small guy. So I'm like, I don't understand how you did. And he was just like, he's like body weight distribution and all this. He's like, I just felt it. And he's like, it's hard to explain. It comes with experience. And I was just like, all right, well.
Yeah, man.
Levels.
Jiu-jitsu saved my life, man. Like, I was going through such a crappy time in my life. You know, I with my son's mom, we were married for 8 years, and I had an affair, and it like broke me inside. And any relationship I was at before her and with her, like I was a faithful guy, and our son was 7 years old at the time, and I just felt like I just let everybody down in my life.
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu was there for me. Like jiu-jitsu, like I guess brought that ownership part out that, you know, like you can't hide from feelings, you can't hide from life, you can't hide from struggle. Like you've got to adapt and overcome, as corny as that saying can be, but like you just got to transition and keep moving. And jiu-jitsu saved me at the end of the day. Like I owe my life, I owe where I'm at now because of jiu-jitsu. And I started down in Gracie Fernandina, down in Jacksonville, Florida. And I still remember the coaches. This little fat guy named Possum was a purple belt, and I walked in, and same thing. I was into CrossFit, and I was about 200 pounds at the time. You know, pretty solid guy. And I walk in, and he's a purple belt, and he hit me with an Ezekiel about 6 times in a row, and I couldn't do anything about it. And I fell in love. There was also there's also something therapeutic about getting beat up, at least to me.
Yeah. It's humbling.
Yes.
Yeah. It's humbling. Yes. It lets you know that you're not the baddest dude in the room. You're not like, I texted my nephew a picture of this guy. I follow a bunch of stuff on like social media about jiu-jitsu, and this dude, he looks like he was like probably in his 40s, like going bald, didn't look like he was in the greatest shape in the world, but he had just gotten his black belt, and I like, took any glasses, just looked kind of nerdy. And so I downloaded the picture and sent it to my nephew, and I'm like, this is why you don't underestimate people. Like you don't act crazy in public, and you don't like bow up to a complete stranger and think that everything's going to be fine, because this guy looks completely harmless, except he could kill all of us. 100%. And it's just like, I'm like, dude, because I don't look harmless, but compared to that guy, I'd be helpless. Unless I got spectacularly lucky, you know, like I'd be harmless. I would look like a child, just a defenseless child, as he dismantled me. And it's just like, it's an extremely humbling thing when you're rolling with people like that, especially smaller people that can just destroy you, and you're just like, oh wow, I really got to learn this thing. Like,
hit you with like a calf slicer, and you're like, what the hell just happened?
What? My favorite is I got wrist locked for the first time, and I thought it was the dumbest thing ever, because I'm just like, all you did was roll my fist over. Like this doesn't make. How can you completely like render me harmless and just screaming by all you do? Are you just rolling my fist over? Like it doesn't.
And they knew it was coming.
Yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely like, I get something out of it for sure. I don't think that, I don't think I was in a place where I was in like particular need of that. I was in particular need of like the stress relief and the getting back in shape, and the community part is huge for me. It's a really great gym.
Everybody's super cool.
Yeah.
Usually in jits. Like,
yep. It's a really great group of people that like I really enjoy being around, and you know, like I needed the community part. Like I needed the stuff outside of work where it's not all just me talking to chiefs. You know what I mean?
I want to I want to share that so much with junior sailors, and you know, chiefs as well. Like I want them to get in there, like where it just seems like everything's drama, gossip. Like when you go to the gym, it's just you bump, tap, and roll. Like and it's your homie there, and he or she's gonna murk you, and you're gonna tap, and you're gonna start all over. Yeah, you know, and you learn each day.
Yep.
My girl knows. Like I feel like it's a Snickers commercial where where if I haven't gone to the gym for a few days, I come home and I'm cranky, and she's like, babe, you need to go to class. Like, you're driving me insane.
Yeah, that's how my wife is. Like when she's healthy, obviously. I mean, she can't do it right now, but if she takes breaks from physical activity for a long time, like after about 3 weeks, she can tell her mood changes. And I'm like, go out in the garage. Cause we have like a garage gym. I sent you a picture of it, but like we have I have a Concept 2 rower and an assault bike and we have everything you'd ever need in the garage. So I'm just like, go out there and work out. And you can see her mood changing. So like, I think jiu-jitsu is the same way. It's like, I'm like right now we haven't been in like 2 weeks cause she's sick and I can't leave the house. And so, yeah, it's like, it's more cause I've been working out. So I've gotten that like release, but, just like I'm like starving, man, because I've been doing kickboxing too, and I just bought Muay Thai pads on Amazon just so I can. I'm like, I told my nephew, I'm like, you're gonna learn a new skill tomorrow. You're gonna learn how to hold pads for me while I take out some frustration.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, man, I think you learn a lot about yourself, especially in jiu-jitsu, where like
every day. Yeah,
like just it's humbling, and it's like the adversity of it. Like I think that like human beings just need something hard to deal with. Like you need adversity in your life. There needs to be something to overcome. And it's like, I think that a lot, like, just like you were saying with how the Navy has been, like we've gotten a little like comfortable with this like easy version of life in a lot of ways. It's like people are the same way, where it's like, we've gotten comfortable with this like very easy existence for most people in a lot of ways. And it's like in the absence of some kind of adversity, you see people like start to invent it or like start to seek it out where it's not there. And it's like, where if you have an activity like this in your life, it's like, you don't need to go seek out adversity. You're gonna find it. Like when you start rolling with people, like you're gonna find it. It's
absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what, like, I'm curious to know, because like I saw like on the Instagram account. I didn't know you had an actual Instagram account for No Fat Chiefs, but so you have that, and then I saw you have like you got T-shirts and all this other stuff. Like, what's the goal of like the kind of like the I don't know what you call like the mission statement or whatever. Like where do you see it going? What are you trying to do with it?
I want it to be. I want the title to help people identify if they don't like themselves, right? And because when I make some posts, people will be like, well, you're a skinnier guy. Like, well, what about the bigger dudes? Like, I hear insecurity when they say that.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for them. But like, no, like, I feel like every body type, like, I'm sure you see it, like thinner dudes are mainly in the martial arts community, right? Like, it really goes by your height, weight, size, right? Like a guy that's 5'10", 5'9" is probably going to be from 170 to 190. But the Navy's got dudes that are 6'4", 240, and they're power lifters. And I think that's needed. I think
for sure.
100%, like I'm not, there's aspects of fitness that it's a round table, right? Like everybody's got a chair at the table, whether you're a runner, a biker, a swimmer, a CrossFitter, a fighter, anything, as long as you're doing something that prepares you for what we're here to eventually do.
Right.
Or potentially do. I feel like we've forgotten that, but so that's step one. I want them to be able to help identify themselves. And then two, I don't know how big this is going to get. I'm kind of letting it roll. But right now, I'm buying gym memberships. I'm buying gear, and it's mainly for it's all been for MMA, like mainly towards Victory MMA, and then down here in San Diego, and then there's another gym here, and then I think there's going to be one in Virginia that I'm buying for. But they'll come in. I'll buy them either. I'll do like a free month for them.
Yeah.
I'll buy.
And who are them? Like, is this sailors? Like, who are
sailors?
These?
Yeah,
wow.
junior. So I've had 3 chiefs and 3 junior sailors so far.
That's awesome.
And I've made zero profit off of this. This has gone to an initial payment for the first month, a deposit, to boxing gloves, to rash guards, to gis. I've got a bunch of equipment, and so that's my goal. I want to help people. I want people to be able to be real with themselves. I want them, and I don't want them to feel embarrassed. And I understand fat can be embarrassing, and I also understand my mantra isn't going to work for everybody.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Like if a title like Ship Shape is going to help you promote health and fitness in your lifestyle to make you better prepared to do our job, go do it.
Yeah.
Hit it. Get after it. Like, stop. And also stop making excuses.
Yeah.
Stop. Like one of the reactions I got from one of the posts was, think about how many are on here that have medical issues and have to deal with it and can't reach out because of your No Fat Chief journey. And my response to that is, if somebody is having a medical condition where they can't perform physically, one, they need to go to medical and be seen so that they can get better, right?
Right.
And then two, if they can't get to that point, I say this in the nicest possible way, they shouldn't be in the Navy anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a hazard.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I feel bad, like, especially somebody that maybe did 16 years and something like that happens, and then they have to get processed out. Like, that, for less of a better term, is a kick in the that sucks.
Yeah.
But I don't want to have, if I'm running into a gunfight, an active shooter as an MA, I do not want to run into a room with somebody with high blood pressure and high cholesterol that I have to worry about, and they're obese, and now they're running into a stressful situation. I mean, the risk for heart attack is probably just skyrocketed with adding the active shooter. Right. You know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't have to worry about that. Like, it's...
Yeah. And I get there's definitely places in the Navy where the like physical ability is like less of a priority, but it's like
100%.
It's kind of always there though. And I think that's why it would be nice if like the fitness tests were tailored by warfare community and platform or whatever. Because like, yeah, there's places where, I mean, if you're an admin guy working at PSD, the odds of you having to physically exert yourself on a high level while you're at work are pretty low. But that doesn't mean that they'll never happen. And that doesn't mean you'll not be back underway on nuclear power or on a Haze Gray platform where you're going to have to be able to perform in like a damage control situation or some, maybe you're on VBSS or maybe you're doing something where you're then going to have to, like, we're all members of the armed forces. So there is a conversation about everybody having a certain level of physical ability. And if there's something that like keeps them, because I was staring down the barrel of getting medically retired. Like we had that conversation where they're like, you're probably never going to get cleared to go back to a submarine again. So then what? And like, does that mean you're not going to get cleared to ever deploy again? We don't know yet. And so like we had a real conversation about getting med boarded and all that stuff. And like, it is what it is. It's like, I understand people's like negative reactions to it. And I understand people saying things like that, where like, well, what about somebody that has a medical issue? Well, okay, we understand that you have that medical issue. I've had sailors work for me that have those medical issues where they're medically waived from the PRT, number one. So there's that. There's a mechanism to make sure that it's not adversely affecting your career. And then you have to go down the path of dealing with that medically and just can you deal with it and get back to full active duty and where you're doing all the things and or maybe there's a medical waiver, but you can still do all the things safely. Or are you in a place where this thing is going to prevent you from being able to stay on active duty and do the same things as everyone else? Like, and I had a buddy that was HIV positive and did like the second half of his career all on shore duty so that he could retire. And I mean, he was a recruiter. He was an RDC. He added value to the Navy, but he didn't do it on a warship. And it's like, that's what he was able to do. And they allowed him to stay on active duty and do that so that he could finish his career and retire. And it was like, I mean, it was great. He's a great dude. And he added value and all those things, but he's not on a deployable platform. And he was also able to maintain the Navy's fitness state. He was an RDC for crying out loud. Like he was clearly able to maintain his physical fitness level at the level it needed to be and better. So I think it's like, it's a hard conversation. It's like, we're not just normal people. Like we're part of the armed forces and there's a special responsibility there to be able to like discharge that function and the demands of it when the time comes. And I don't think we're spending enough time thinking about when the time comes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we spend enough time saying like, hey, when this branch of the service starts getting shot at, what, and there's a very real possibility that could happen in our lifetime. What's going to happen? Like, where are our weak areas and like, what are going to be the biggest learning curves for us? And I think it's pretty easily identifiable. Like when you look around the room, I just think that because of human nature and the things that you've been describing, it's like nobody wants to acknowledge the elephant in the room. And it's just like
the literally an elephant.
It's like, what are we doing? And it's not one of the best filters. And I said it in a recent podcast where it's like the best BS filter on the planet Earth is a bunch of E4s and E5s in the smoke pit. Like, just go talk to them and they'll tell you. And so the way that I do this kind of virtually is like, I go to all those meme sites all over the internet and you see the stuff that they're sharing, poking fun at the high level of stress and the ridiculous things that happen and all this other stuff. But what you see a lot of that caricature that you kind of painted for us earlier with the big fat coffee cup carrying mustache wearing chief that can't pass a PRT, but somehow passes BCAs and PRTs every year. You know, it's just like, and that's a real thing. Otherwise that caricature wouldn't exist. And so you got to kind of say to yourself, well, like, okay, well, what are we doing about that?
100%.
And I think that that's another one of those hard conversations no one wants to have. It's like, look, I get it. And I get why it's hard to have, but so is the one about all the improvements we could make with like enlisted leadership development and education in the Navy. And we're starting to have that, but we're still not turning the mirror on ourselves as a mess and saying, hey, what can we do better?
And it all comes back to, truth and reporting, right?
Yep.
We're seeing it a lot with our screenings where we're getting people at our command that they get there and you're like,
all the time.
Who signed your screening?
All the time. Yeah. Well, especially you guys with an expeditionary job, like,
yeah,
but same thing, man. Like we're on a deployable unit. It's like if you failed any portion of the PRT or PFA, whatever, which one's the overarching umbrella term? It's PFA, right? And then
PFA,
PRT and BCA are like, okay. I always do that backwards.
Yeah. We know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, I don't think a PFA was a real thing when I first came in the Navy either. I think it was just called a PRT. But anyway, like if you fail to any portion of it, you cannot transfer from a unit to another command, and it's like they're just constantly happening. So these guys show up and they're just like way outside of standards, and you're just like, what? Like it's the commands just don't take ownership of the like special duty screening process or the flag duty screening process or whatever. Like I'm assuming it's special duty for you guys or whatever it is, but it's like there's requirements in a book and we're still not doing it. And then these people show up and you're just like, how? It's like when a command lets somebody transfer during like the advancement exam, and then the sailor misses out on taking the advancement exam because the command didn't do what's required in the instruction of like holding that person up or forwarding their exam. And it's just like, it's the same kind of thing where it's just like, yeah, this is their career. Like, what are you doing? Because why wasn't the conversation had and the corrective actions employed while they were still at that command? Because he was close to his PRD or she was close to her PRD, and you didn't want to, this is somebody else's problem now. You know, like, because and whether or not you consciously thought that, it's like that's effectively what you did. You're just like, I'll just let somebody else deal with this problem.
Yep, and I'm the CFO for the command that I'm at too, and I recommended to the CO that we run the PRT. And he bought off on it, and I don't want to say bought off. He approved that.
Yeah,
and,
we're doing it too.
Yeah, and the only way you get to bike it is if you have a medical condition. And the waivers that I have coming through right now, where there's people that are like, I can't do any part of the PRT, and I'm like, and I think people think with my brand that I mean this in a disrespectful way, and I don't. But they get waived from the whole PRT, and I'm like, why are you here?
Right.
Like you should be LIMDU.
Yeah.
Right. You should be on a med board. You should be figuring out what is going on with you medically, so you're not screwed for the rest of your life after, because the Navy's not going to be here forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it, and also like you're telling me you can't run, do a plank or a push-up, but I have to give you a 40-pound kit, a helmet, and an M4 and an M9 and gear and ammunition, and send you downrange and say, protect this asset and protect junior sailors around you. No, like
that's insane to me. That should those things should be linked. Like, where if you can't do the PRT, then you're immediately like disqualified from your primary duty and have to then go figure out like
and
what's going on. That's crazy.
It is mind-boggling to me why I'm the bad guy for thinking like that.
Yeah, I don't understand that piece. I understand why people would have a negative reaction to like the term no fat chiefs and like the idea of using that to promote the fitness and like I understand the reaction. It doesn't bother me, and I've been fat. Like that's been a thing before, like where I came off my first Chiefs tour. I'm 5'11". I was 215 pounds of not muscle. Like I'm telling you, I was fat. And I'm like, and that was a wake up call for me, because I've been a person that's tried to stay healthy and be physically fit my entire life. And it was the type of platform where every single ounce of my bandwidth went to the mission. But then when I got done, I was like, oh my God, what happened? You know, and then I got into CrossFit and lost all the weight and got back in shape. But I dealt with it, and it was, I don't know, like
you owned it.
Yeah, I took ownership of it and held myself accountable. And I understand that, like you said, it doesn't work for everybody. To really have that frank, blunt type of conversation where like someone's holding a mirror in front of you and saying like something blunt and like very forcefully, like, hey, that's a problem and you need to fix it. Works for me. I like that. I respond to that. Not everyone does, and that's okay, like you were saying earlier. But so I guess I understand that this wouldn't be for everybody. I think that if we're going to be an organization that talks the way that we do and champions this identity that we have and takes pride in that identity of like that we're willing to say the things that need to be said, that when we're talking about Chiefs specifically, that it shouldn't be a problem to have that conversation. And you're not even pointing at any one individual and calling them out. You're just saying that, hey, if we're going to be in this organization that's designed for warfighting and we're going to be the leaders that are supposed to be the examples for everyone else to follow and stand in front of that group and be the exemplars, supposedly, then we need to look the part and we need to meet the standards of the organization so that when things happen, that we're able to lead from the front when the ship's on fire and when we're 100%. Being shot at. And it's like, that's you if you're not physically capable of doing that, that's a problem. And so, and again, it's like, it doesn't mean that there's not a place in the Navy for a chief that's dealing with a medical issue and that when that medical issue is resolved, that they're going to get right back in the fight. Like, they're okay. Understand all. Like, people got to take a knee once in a while. Like, it happens. I took a knee for 7 months. Like, I didn't go to work for 5 months because I had a tumor pulled out of my face. I had radiation, like brain surgery, all this stuff, right? Got done. It took a long time to recover from the fatigue and all the fun side effects of radiation. I was on a liquid diet for 3 weeks because I had sores in my mouth that were too bad to chew, like all this crazy stuff. But then at the end of it, I got back and then I immediately was like talking to my doctors and was like, hey, when can I start PTing? They're like, well, what do you mean by PT? Because they're like, if you go deadlift something, you could like, they violated the barrier between my sinuses and my brain to pull the tumor out, and they removed some brain tissue and stuff. So like that flap that they repaired could come undone. And then now I got, what's it called? Your spinal fluid or whatever coming out of your nose and all this wild stuff. And you could die. Yeah. And so they're like, you got to wait and you got to do this, and you got to do that. But then eventually they're like, okay, yoga's okay. And then they're like, okay, like light cardio is okay. And then they're like, okay, like not greater than 30 pounds, but you can do a little bit of weight training. And
you mean you worked yourself up to it?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Which is another thing I try to tell people.
Took me a hot minute though. Like, and I was not like, I started jiu-jitsu in May and I still was not in great shape. Like I was just like kind of reintroducing my body to the physical demands of certain things, but it wasn't like, I was still in pretty not good shape and I was still heavier than I wanted to be. But then as soon as I started jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, it was like, oh, here we go. Like, and then I started doing a bunch of weight training and all that other stuff. And now I'm in pretty good shape.
And then people like will tell me like, I got really mad at somebody. He said, you're excluding people. How about you just exclude? You should just make another T-shirt brand like no Black Chiefs or no Asian Chiefs. And I'm like, you're an idiot, dude. Like, are you really saying that? Like,
come on.
And then he's like, you're telling me that just because you're fat, you can't be in the Navy. And I'm like, I'm not saying that. The instruction's saying that.
Well, and
it's
again,
just a different terminology.
It's not that you can't ever. It's just there's an expectation that you maintain a certain level of physical ability. And like, look, there are people that you might look at in their khakis that's like an uneducated person would say is fat, right? That like, so a buddy of mine is a great example. He's a retired chief now, but he was an instructor with me when I was at an A school. And this guy looked like a live action human version of Shrek. Like he was a gorilla of a human being, but he wasn't fat. He was just gigantic. Like his hands were huge. His head was huge. His neck was huge. He was just a gigantic dude. And there was a little CrossFit box on base. I was on an Army base. And so we would go over there at lunch and work out. And I mean, this guy was in shape and he would get an excellent on the PRT every time it came around. Yep. But they would say that he would have to do something crazy to pass the BCA every year, even though like I've seen the dude with his shirt off. He's not fat. Right. And it's like, so there are guys that you'll see or gals that you'll see that you'll like define as that because you're not paying attention and you're not like, you don't understand what it means to be fit. And I would even say that the instruction that you just mentioned probably isn't like the best measure of what fit is, because not like the body types and stuff there are, I've known guys like I would come into the weigh-ins back before they updated the policy. I think it's slightly better now with the waist taping, and then you progress to the next level of taping. But like back when it was just like you have to get taped, and then even the tape measurements were kind of goofy for guys that were like bodybuilders and stuff. Buddies, I know some of them were MAs. They would come in and they'd like weigh in, and then they would barely pass the tape, or they would tell them that they like had to come back or something. Like these guys would take their shirts off and they were shredded. And you're just like, how is that guy out of, like, maybe their cardio's not great and they can't run far. So I don't know, like whatever. Sometimes that's a stereotype with big muscle heads or whatever. But I'm talking about like this dude, clearly healthy, clearly in shape, like could probably pick me up and break me in half. And you're just like, oh, really? We gotta do body fat measurements on a guy that clearly has single digit per body fat percentage.
100%.
So there's definitely those people out there too, but particularly the example being those bigger people that are getting excellence on the PRT, but somehow are close when it comes to the BCA. It's like, there's just different body types out there that are still physically fit that don't necessarily look the stereotypical like definition of physically fit. So it's not like we're saying that either. It's just like the people that are not meeting any of the standards, or that need to be medically waived from the fitness requirements, but are somehow still able to do the mission. Like,
It doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense. It's like, it's really like if you need to be medically waived for the PRT, and it's not like because even that, like, so maybe they have an acute issue where they like badly sprained their ankles, but okay, well I can do push-ups, but I can't do it, or you know what I mean, like stuff like that. Even acute injuries, okay, like maybe you don't need to be transferred, but like you're gonna be still like a guy with a broken leg's not gonna go out and on the flight line and be guarding those planes or whatever.
Absolutely.
You know, like you're gonna be on limb do until your freaking leg's healed. So it's like, I guess I don't quite understand reactions like that, except for that it's just ignorance. Like they didn't take the time to look into it. Cause like I said, when I first talked to one of my chief buddies about it, he kind of thought, he was like, really? You're going to talk to that guy? Like, that sounds like that could go off the rails quickly. And I was like, yeah, I don't think it's about what you think it's about. You know what I mean? And like by you selecting that term, it's like, I mean, no fat cheese could be a turnoff to a lot of people that most people don't take the time to then go explore your Instagram and then reach out to you and talk to you. And now we're going on an hour plus where I'm getting to like taking the time to understand like, okay, why are you doing this? Like, why do you have a mouth guard that says no fat Chiefs? Like, where is this coming from? And turns out it's coming from a really great place where it, like, cause like, talk to me about yesterday morning. What were you doing?
So I have two sailors. They are non-MA. They're corpsmen. Both were limb due. Both are heading to, I hope I pronounce this right, FMTB. So they're going to go be FMF corpsmen. Yeah. I met them on the Mercy because I was on the Mercy for the COVID mission. That was probably the worst I don't want to say the worst 2 months of my life, but I've never been in trouble so much for working out in my naval career. Oh, because of COVID? Like, yeah. But one of them was on the all Navy wrestling team. Oh, nice. Both females. Oh, wow. And awesome. Yeah. And then the other one is she practices Muay Thai down here in San Diego and also back home in New York. They both had injuries and some personal things going on. Yeah. Where they gained weight and or an injury and then they kind of fell off. Yeah. They reached out to me and, you know, they said, hey, I love your ownership. I need it. I need you to be on top of me. So they came over. I have a gym, same like you, down in my garage. Yeah. And then also, I don't know if you looked at like my personal page, but I'm lucky enough to be really good friends with Dominic Cruz, Jeremy Stevens. Oh, nice. Some UFC guys. Yeah. And I reached out to Dominic Cruz's manager, OJ Jimenez, who is a Navy veteran, all-Navy wrestling team. And he is a professional fighter as well. And he came over and trained with them and, you know, they got to pick his brain from a professional fighter aspect. And, that's cool. And same thing, you know, with my son, where I'm trying to teach my kid is mindset, because he wants to play basketball. But mindset is everything as a professional athlete.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get there unless you're thinking the right way.
Right.
And I wanted them to pick his brain, and they got to, and it was hearing them talk to him. One of them said, "I never had dreams of being a chief until I met Chief Murphy."
That's
that was
what's
cool.
Up. So that like, cool. Yeah, dude, that's what's up. Because that's like when you describe that to like, because again, like I was still like kind of learning about what you were doing and why. And you texted me like about the like, hey, well, in the morning I'm going to be doing this. Mm-hmm. Like a fitness camp for like mental health and physical mm-hmm. and what, and I'm like, what? And so it's like your initial reaction to like the what it appears to be without actually doing any investigating or asking you any questions. It's like, that's the only way I could see anybody reacting negatively to it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's just like, for some reason, there's like this unwillingness to have conversations with people and give them the benefit of the doubt, or just agree to disagree and still be okay at the end of the conversation. Like, absolutely. Like when I talk to, you know who Christina D'Arienzo is?
The real life chief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna keep making me edit.
Mm-hmm. Oh damn.
It's all good, man. You only cursed 6 times so far.
Oh, that's a record. That's a record for a guy from Boston.
Yeah. So she was the one that did that video on TikTok, and like same thing. Like I had a pretty negative reaction when it first came out. Like, oh my God, and had a hard time understanding how that could possibly happen. What was she thinking? Kind of like a lot of, it wasn't as bad as a lot of other people, but like I had a negative reaction initially. And then after a couple of days, I was like, hang on a minute. Like I'm the guy that's always talking about like giving people the benefit of the doubt and asking the question or whatever. So then I reached out to her and said, hey, like, would you be willing to talk to me on a podcast about this? And I guess she had a bunch of other people reach out to her in more of like a way where they wanted to almost like shame her or whatever. Like, and she got a lot of really negative feedback. Like she was getting messages like kill yourself and like Jesus. All this really gross stuff from like people in the mess and like in the Navy on active duty. It was disgusting. Mm-hmm. But then I got on a podcast with her and now like she's one of my favorite human beings, man. Like I'm going to do another one with her soon. Like she mm-hmm. is awesome. And then when you really dig into like what she was doing and why she was doing it on TikTok, she was spending most of her time on there mentoring sailors. Like mm-hmm. going way out of her way, spending all this extra time doing basically what I do with the podcast on TikTok. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh, wow. Like how badly I misjudged this. Like how dare I assume, because I'm somebody that kind of prides myself on not doing that and asking the questions. And then it's like, it was just super appropriate that I was that off, like that mm-hmm. I was that wrong about it. And how she's chiefing harder than almost all the people that had any criticisms of her, you know, mm-hmm. like it was wild, man. And so like the same thing applies to you. It's like anybody that's passing that kind of judgment on you. But then you get a comment like that from those junior sailors that you're taking care of. Like come on, like those people that have those criticisms, it's just ignorance.
Yeah. And you know, like I know as much as I love to fight, like I know I'm not the best fighter. So yeah. I was lucky enough to bring, you know, Dom and Jeremy and all them to come train my guys. And yeah. here are 12 sailors who potentially, you know, especially right now with our, you know, aircraft security teams mm-hmm. and what we're seeing on the news, we could potentially deploy and yeah. be in a rough situation. And who better? Because a lot of the times too, we're unarmed, you know, yeah. where we go. It's just we try to blend in with the rest of the air crew.
Right.
So who better to learn how to defend yourself than from people who do it every day?
Yeah, greatest bantamweight of all time.
Exactly, like, right? Yeah. These guys, I've had some girls come in, Angela Hill.
Yeah, I love Angela Hill.
Yeah, I got some wrestlers come in. I'm trying to get Roman Bravo Young in. He's from Penn State right now.
Nice.
Who better than grown men and women that get locked into a cage and say, "All right, go scrap." Like, I want my sailors to I want them to trust me, right?
Yeah.
because how many times do they say, "Oh, this training's crappy," or
right,
or
right.
blah blah blah? No, Chief brought in arguably the best fighter ever to teach us how to defend ourselves
in
when
a
we're
real
alone.
fight. Yeah, dude, that's awesome because you get instant credibility. Like I was just talking to the one of the guys from Test Depth, and his grandfather is a retired SEAL CMC. And we were talking about like leveraging retirees for leadership development training and education and stuff. And I was like, imagine putting your grandfather in a room where not only does he have the reference point of like, hey, we have the same context. I was in the Navy, I was a CMC, and I was a Navy SEAL. But also then he'd spend his whole like civilian career doing these other things. The type of credibility that leader has when they walk into a room to do leadership development training, it's like I don't have to establish anything. Like for me, when I walk into a space, when I'm not, like obviously the DGUTS thing is not attached to my personal name and job and everything. So like when I walk into a room, do I have a certain level of credibility because I'm a master chief and I have a lot of experience? Yeah, sure. But like when I'm doing leadership development and education training, I'm just a cook master chief. And a lot of people probably discount my credibility, and I have to like work a little harder to make them believe that I know what I'm talking about. So it's like that person doesn't have to establish that credibility. They immediately are like, oh, like he was a SEAL CMC and he did this whole civilian career. They're immediately on the edge of their seat. Right. They're immediately riveted and hanging on every word. And so like same thing, like for your people, when they are learning how to do, like, this is going to be an aspect of them learning how to do their job and just them professionally developing. And they get to learn from the greatest bantamweight ever. Yeah. And they get to learn from like Jeremy Stevens, good Lord, watch one of his fights, and like Angela Hill, like, and especially like for the two female corpsmen that you were training, for them to like spend time with Angela Hill, because it's not a dude teaching them, it's a female. And she's a pretty small female, so it's like exactly for her, and she's a savage. So it's just like that's instant credibility. You don't have to convince them to listen to Angela Hill. You know what I mean? Like they're immediately going to like be on 100% receive mode, and obviously she's going to have a ton to offer. And so it's just like, that's incredible training, man. That's so valuable for them, and they'll never forget it. And you're inspiring sailors to be chiefs when they grow up. Come on. Like that's amazing, dude. That is amazing.
So like I was never, we went to the next today, and there was somebody in civilian clothes with their anchor on their face mask, and I'm like, oh. To me, I'm like, I feel bad that they need that, but so I'm not like, I'm not a person that I aspired to be a chief. I love that I am, like, because everybody's always mad about the people they've hated in their Navy career, but the 5 to 10 chiefs that changed my life, like, I'm so thankful for them because they stuck out so much in my life that like I want to repay back. Like they were so raw and authentic and like different, just like the grit and the grime, like just different mentality. And I want to bring that in. I want the camaraderie, especially from my flight deck chiefs. Like we were all so close. We were like a family, like we pulled in a report on deployment, and you went out and you drank, you hung out together. But at the end of the day, you still knew that's my chief. That's my divo. But that is like my uncle and my father on deployment, right? Where they're like, because if you start being dumb, they're like, hey, Airman Murphy, it's time for you to go back to the boat right now. And you're like, damn, all right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I want to repay that part. I want to. Chief Murphy has our back. Chief Murphy like has our best intentions in his mind, and he's trying to constantly put us in a spot to succeed. Like, some of these kids, I have E5s that they're my mission commanders, and they're gonna go to these countries without me. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just the same thing as an MA. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room with MACs. And they talk about how crappy our training is, but we take this 18-year-old girl who is probably one of the most innocent little girls in the Navy, and is just here because she's here to join the Navy and wanted an adventure, and she picked to be an MA. And we're like, hey, we're gonna put you on this post 2 miles away from everybody else with a gun and a kit, and we're gonna tell you to protect this post. And we talk about how crappy our training is, and then be completely okay with it.
Yeah.
How do you go to bed at night? Like, how do you
Dude,
no,
you're preaching to the choir. Like, I spend my free time doing a leadership development and education podcast because I was disgusted with leadership development and education training.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
I can't tell you how many times, like, we have training Tuesdays as MAs for, like, our base police guys.
Right.
And it's ran by DOD civilians who, majority are retired chiefs, and they're there for their government paycheck.
Yep.
So the planning.
I've interacted with those dudes. I used to stay on base CDO on shore duty, and so I'd be technically I'm like the whatever tactical commander or whatever the hell of base security, and so I would have to interact with those dudes, and I was generally not impressed.
Absolutely, and we'd go into training Tuesday and we'd be sitting around for 45 minutes. And I remember one day I was like, enough. I was like, everybody up. We're going to my jiu-jitsu gym. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I got chastised for taking them to illegal training. But I can't tell you how many of the junior sailors were like,
loved it.
Holy crap. I'm in trouble if I ever get into a fight.
Yeah. Yeah. It's eye-opening. Like, holy crap.
And this is my passion. This is my love. And other chiefs are like, well, you should just get better at eval writing. You're not that great at that. Like, I'll reach out for help if I need it on an eval. Like, I'm okay with that.
Also, like, them saying that, it's like, okay, standing by to receive. What are you doing right now? Mm-hmm. Like, if you think that I'm so bad at eval writing, why haven't you brought it up before? Okay, sit down and teach me. I'm ready. Let's go. Like,
but it's just like through season, right? We're taught, the strength of the mess. Mm-hmm. I'm going to reach out to my YNC on, hey, what do you think this? How can I word this for the command to like? And what am I missing here? Can you tell me?
Yeah.
Just like I hope they reach out to me for a physical standard issue.
Right.
And again, that's the power of the mess. I want people. The Navy's so good at giving people things that they don't want to really do, and the product or the result of that is crap. Right? Yeah. They don't work hard. There's no passion. Yep. Here, we want you to be a safety PO. And the MA2 or PO2 is like, I don't give a crap about safety. Like, so like they're not going to put a product on, right?
Right.
Give it to the people who enjoy it.
Right.
There's so many people out there that enjoy each aspect of the Navy that we don't have to force feed it down somebody that doesn't want it.
Right. Or create artificially create this diversity in assignments to make somebody that's well-rounded. It's like, look, I get it. But also most of this stuff, like I could because there's things you should always you're going to need to learn, right? Like you should have a certain level of ability when writing evals and awards.
100%.
Like but also, and that it's never invalid because dude, I was writing chief evals for guys that were trying to make senior chief on my last submarine where they would come to me and I mean, these guys have been around as long as I have. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, can you take a look at this? I just want to make sure because I'm really trying to put a star on this year, and so they would have me go over their evals because I'm really good at writing evals. And so it's like, but that chief writes a ton of evals for his entire division or department. Mm-hmm. They're just like getting a second set of eyes, asking for help and advice exactly as they should be to 100%. Make sure that the product is the best it possibly can be. So it's just like,
and that's what I want for my guys as a physical person, also as a person that struggled with mental health issues with my the divorce I went through because of my mistakes, because of me being dumb.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu and physical activity was such a big part in my recovery that I want to share it with people, and I want people to have that success story because when you're down and out and when you make it, it's so much more worth it. It feels so good.
Yeah. And I wish that the connection would be made between that, between physically demanding things that you get a lot out of like that, right? Mm-hmm. Like jujitsu or any form of martial arts or like CrossFit or whatever. And mental health, because we have you see an effort being made to deal with what's viewed as a mental health problem in the Navy. Like we got the Warrior Toughness program coming out where they're trying to make people more resilient, which is great. You got embedded mental health on waterfronts so that sailors can walk in with no appointment and talk to a mental health professional. Great. Mm-hmm. But also let's address before it actually gets to that point, let's address prevention. So what is the best possible way we could prevent anybody from arriving at that level of stress or anxiety or whatever? Probably physical fitness. Mm-hmm. And it's we don't take it seriously in the Navy. We just don't, like, except for a couple of real tiny isolated pockets of the Navy. But generally, we
call those Navy SEALs.
Yeah, well, pretty much, or like FMF corpsmen, or like a handful. There's a handful of communities that take it really seriously, and outside of that, it's like we talk about it, and we talk about it being our, because that's the other piece I wanted to address was like, so we're pointing at these people and we're saying no fat chiefs, but on the flip side of that coin, the one pretty valid argument, beside, like, we talked about the medical exceptions and stuff like that, but like for a guy like me, like, I've been in a place where I literally didn't have time. Like, and I know people say that, and you're like, well, maybe you're badly prioritizing your time and blah. Like, let me break it down for you. I would stand 8 hours of dive every single day, which means I'm sitting in a chair in the control room of a submarine. I can't walk away unless I get a head relief. And I'm effectively flying a submarine underwater. That's what I'm doing. I got 2 guys driving in front of me that I'm supervising. I got a chief of the watch to my left that I'm supervising. I got the officer deck behind me telling me where to go, and then I go make it happen. So then before that, so you do a pre-watch brief and post-watch, like, hot wash. So really my 8-hour watch is with meals and those trainings is more like 10 hours. And then when I'm done with that, I have to go do whatever, like, that there's training or there's like something else going on after the fact. And then I have to do like I'm a drill guy, I'm a simio, I'm a assistant ship's diving officer, which means I'm writing and grading all these exams for qualifications and all this other stuff. It's like there's a ton of things that happen that eat up all my time. And then at some point in there, after I've already, I mean, you're looking at 12 to 14 hours of my day gone now. And then I, at some point, have to do my primary duty. It's like, okay, so then I try to figure out a way to do that. And then I arrive at this place where I've got 6, 7, 8 hours left in the day. Am I sleeping or am I working out?
Right.
And then what do I got going on the next day? And then rinse and repeat 7 days a week while we're on deployment. And it's just like, okay. And then like getting back to like when there were times in the interim where, like, yeah, I mean, I could get some workouts in sporadically when we're in port or like when we're getting ready to deploy. But even then it's like like you're spending late days at work, and then you get home, you want to spend some time with your family and just crash because you got to do it again the next day. So then you're in this place where it's very, very, very difficult to make that happen. And it's not really prioritized by the Navy. It's like, yeah, I got to pass a PRT twice a year. Got it. I'll make sure I do that. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that's made important outside of those 2 days every year. So it's like, how do you
say incorporate it into fire drills or wherever you're stationed? Like, maybe the Navy could make it a, like, where, like, all right, like in this drill, we're going to do 30 minutes of a high intensity situation where you're going to be in your kit, whatever kit it is, and you're going to be performing, like, right. Include it into the training cycle or aspect of what we're doing.
Right. And also, like, just for me, I don't understand why it's not built into the workday in some way or another, because it seems like with other services it is, like, and granted, like, I was on an Army base, they PT'd every day at 5:30 in the morning, and it was everyone, but also they didn't go home till 1800, and that's disgusting. Right. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, like, add it on necessarily, but it's like, if it's so important and we're gonna measure.
Well, I think the Navy's got to stop giving us dumb stuff to do, like, right. All these GMTs and these NKOs. You know, like,
yeah, you're not wrong.
You're gonna take, like, sexual assault is such a serious issue, and I am. This is not me, like, trying to downplay it, but this training that we're doing on a computer, or like this like a speech, or like this little paper that we get read. No. We need to tell, like, and I say this because a majority of cases are males on females.
Yeah.
We need to talk to these, as men in leadership positions, we need to talk to these younger men and tell them and train them how they should be treating their co-counterparts as in their sailor females. This is your team. Don't freaking treat them wrong. Be a good person. Like, we need to train them and I mean, fear worked for me with my dad. When my dad was mad, like, I was like, oh, man.
Right. Well, I think so many of the things that we spend time addressing in that way, where there's like anything that there's required training for annually or semi-annually, or we have a safety stand down or whatever, we're always reactionary and we're always addressing the symptom of a greater problem, right? Mm-hmm. Like you could distill it down to like a broad concept of like human needs not being met, right? Like leadership development and education, like just teaching them like what acceptable behavior is a lot of the time is all it really takes, is like showing them, like demonstrating by example, but also just talking to them about like what it is, like who we are and what we do. Like, well, this is how we function as an organization. This is how we treat our shipmates. This is like, these people are our family. We will need to depend on them when we're getting shot at, or when something explodes and everything's on fire, or when water's coming in the people tank and it's not supposed to. Like, so you you need to be able to count on these people to save your life. So it's like, yeah, you need to create a culture where those things are just understood, and like I think a lot of the problems would just kind of go away. And not everything. You're never going to solve everything, because sociopaths are going to like squeak their way in through the recruiting process, and then you're going to have to deal with that problem when it shows itself. So it's never going to completely go away. But I think you could do a lot of good by addressing like a root cause, instead of constantly just, oh, there's too many sexual assaults this year, now we're going to make you sit in front of this PowerPoint, and like, what does that fix?
Yeah, you're pretending you care, is what it tells me.
Kind of, yeah. That's what I get out of it, is it's like we have to make it look like we're doing something about it, so they make a mandatory training that sort of addresses it. And it's just like the best thing I've ever seen. So like for suicidal ideation and attempts and acts, right? Like we're looking at suicide like it's this giant problem, because it is. But the best like thing I've ever seen done about it is a group of junior sailors on the USS Hopper got together and created an organization called Life Promotion. And it's like a preemptive, and it applies to mental health and all this other stuff too. Like they created this organization where they were unwilling to accept the fact that certain sailors were being excluded, or like not, like they didn't feel like they were involved, or they didn't feel like they were valued. Like sailors sitting on the ship during Christmas, like not doing anything and not being invited to anybody's house, just everything. They would create activities, like do events, get involved, ask questions. They had a meal at someone's house where they literally made sure there was 0 people that weren't on duty on the ship, like not eating at someone's house, like during Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. They did like Madden tournaments, and like the CO was involved and interacted with that sailor that is like generally neglected and whatever. And it wasn't reactionary, and it was created and owned by junior sailors. It wasn't a Navy directed thing. Right. Like, no,
and I think that's what makes it better.
Yeah. A nav admin didn't put it out. And so those sailors take ownership of it. Like, and then all the other sailors are like, well, these are our peers doing this. So they wanted to be involved in it. And then and this command, all they did was say, yeah, do it. And they were very supportive of it. And it's since spread to a bunch of other ships in Pearl Harbor. I don't know where it has gone since. Like, I'd have to check in with those guys, but it was incredible, and it was proactive.
And you talk about like those other programs that the Navy just started, that they're making people go to. I think those are great programs, but we also wouldn't need those programs if people just did their job. If people actually cared, and this, like
kinda. So I get what you're saying, but like when you say if people just did their job, I think that implies that like, well, if everybody just did their job, then we would effectively be perfect. You know what I mean? And there wouldn't be a need for those kinds of things.
Right. I don't want to say perfect. Definitely. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
In an organization comprised of human beings, there's always going to be problems, and there's going to be things that we need to do to mitigate those problems. And so it's like, because there's just, the one thing I've learned over the number of years I've been doing this is it's like, no matter how badly I want to just have a whole bunch of people that are performing at a 10 out of 10 level, that like have the aptitude and drive and motivation and discipline and all the things that are required to do what we do and do it at a high level. And they don't always need help, and they don't always need oversight. And they're like, what I've learned is everybody every single person's ceiling is in a different place. And so my job is to get them to that ceiling, but also understand that because some people's ceilings are lower than others, I'm going to need to make sure that there's something in place to mitigate the gap there if necessary, right? Or I'm going to need to understand that, like, there are going to be people that come in the Navy that don't think that certain things are wrong, that don't think saying or doing certain things are wrong, that don't, like my friend Amber, a black female GM that worked for me. She's been on the podcast a ton of times. Incredible human being. She has dealt with sailors on ships that, like, they grew up in a place where there were no black people and where racism was just normal. Mm-hmm. And then they came in the military and they're like looking around and kind of learning by doing that, like, everything that was said about these people was wrong. And so Amber, like, would have conversations with people that thought black people were evil and like explain it to them. Like, I'm just and like kind of change their worldview. And so it's like, it wasn't that person was a bad person. They were just raised in an environment where they were taught that, like, that racism was valid. Right. And so but then they met Amber and they're like, but I like her. Like, she's nice and she's smart and she treats me well. And like, I like working with her. And so then they had to like overcome that together. And it's just like, that stuff's never going to not happen in this diverse of an organization. So it's like I'm with you. There's a lot of problems that could be solved. And I kind of go back to like the mess all the time as the example, because that's my context. Is like, it, like, I was asked at the end of the last podcast, I put out the Discord Q&A thing. They said, if you were MCPON for a day and you could accomplish anything in one day, like, what would you fix? And I was like, if I could snap my fingers like Thanos, it's like, I would fix the Chiefs mess, because, and that's a really broad idea, but it's like, if the Chiefs mess was just humming all the time and doing all the right things and living up to the mission, vision, and guiding principles on a daily basis as a whole organization, think of how many things that would fix. Like, that touches the entire Navy, all 100%, stem to stern. So it's just like, that's ideally, like, in my mind, I'm with you. Like, that's what I would love to see happen. But it's like, also, I kind of understand that that's impossible. Like, we can aspire to be the best we possibly can, but the best we possibly can is never going to be perfect. And there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be a chief getting a DUI, even though I think, like, it should never happen. It's going to happen occasionally because human beings are human beings. And like I was telling you Jeff's story that you mentioned earlier, like Jeff didn't get a DUI because he's a bad person or because he wanted to get a DUI or he didn't respect the responsibility he had at the time as an LDO and then reverted back to chief. It's like, he was in a really bad spot in his life and he was having mental health struggles and was suicidal. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that he talks about candidly all the time. And it's just like, people are going to end up in that space at some point. It just happens. Like, I talk about it openly on the podcast. I'm seeing a mental health professional right now for anxiety issues that came out when I got diagnosed with cancer and started radiation. And turns out it's linked to a bunch of other stuff too. But it's just like I was breaking down and crying for no reason. And I had no idea what was going on or why, or like, all these doctors are telling me I'm going to be completely fine. And so, like, in my mind, there's not really a problem, even though, like, I'm in the midst of treatment. It's like, they're telling me I'm going to be fine. And I believed them. Like, in my mind, I wasn't worried about it. But in my, I don't know, unconscious mind or whatever, apparently everything wasn't cool. And so, like, I was a dumpster fire. And so eventually my wife's like, you need to go deal with this.
What do you think helped you the most?
I think it was a combination. I think recognizing it wasn't just something I could deal with myself, or it wasn't, I've had an anxiety issue for a long time. I just thought it was normal. Right. Like, I just looked at it like it was just, I do a stressful job. Like, it's normal when I'm not in a position where cause like, for me, when I was standing diving off to the watch, like, I got people's lives in my hands. Like, if something goes wrong, like, I'm going to, like, hurt people and break the submarine and affect the mission. And that's the gravity of that, like the gravity of that watch station every day freaked me out. Like, I didn't deal with it well. And like, and I did it well. Like, I was good at it, but like, and that's why they kept me up there. I kept telling them, like, can I get a break or whatever? And they were just like, no, like, you're great at it. We love you. Like, you're doing so good. And
I feel like the Navy's good at that, breaking people that are good at the job.
Yeah. And so, like, that was, I thought to myself, well, once I'm away from this, I'll be fine. Like once I don't have to deal with this anymore, it won't be an issue. And so I just thought it was normal anxiety because I was doing a thing that was like pretty heavy, but then it didn't go away and it just got worse. And so I think what helped the most was probably recognizing that it was actually an issue. And then like, because that's what, in order to go talk to a mental health professional, I had to kind of be like, okay, this is it's a bigger problem than just, oh, this is just normal anxiety. Like, no, this isn't going to just fix itself.
Right.
But I don't know, man. Like, I think talking to somebody was big, and it's hilarious because he's a really young lieutenant. Who, when I walked in the room, I immediately snap judged and was like, this isn't going to work. Like this guy's 12. Like, and but he's awesome. I love him. I love talking to him, and it's helped a ton. And I don't know why it works so well, but it does. He's just a great dude. But also like, jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, I think were huge. I think it was more like the community aspect of it and like the interacting with people and because I've always been somebody that like my circle's always been small, and I don't like, it's not hard for me to make friends, but I don't want to just make like casual friends. Like I'm looking for people that are going to add substance to my life. And so like
100%,
I'm discriminating in that way where it's like, I don't really want casual, like go out to eat beer friends that aren't really friends. Like that's just not me. I don't get anything out of that. And I'm okay being by myself, but also when your wife is your only friend, it's like, cause that's when I move around a lot. Like I made a ton of really great friends on both shore duties, but like when I'm on boats, it's like, I am like tunnel vision on the mission and doing my thing. So it's like make a few close friends in like the mess and stuff. But
yeah, I
didn't really want to hang out with those people that I worked with outside of work. And so then I'd start isolating basically. And it was just, that's not good. Mm-hmm. So I think the hanging out with those people and being able to relate on something like that, because I met all my other friends at my last shore duty through CrossFit, and it was kind of the same thing. It's just this really great community vibe where like, I mean, I was going to their house for Thanksgiving. I went back and visited. I went out and pinned one of my instructors to chief 2 years ago.
Oh, nice.
And when I was out there, I went to the area where I worked and visited like the civilian friends that I had, or like Army friends that I had that were still there. Cause it's like my family. I went to their house for holidays. Like I stayed with one of them when I was in that area. Like I came up from Norfolk and hung out there and like stayed with the family. And like, I mean, those kids are like, they're like my kids. Like right. It's crazy. Like I got a picture with one of the, my friend's daughter that like when she was little, she was probably like 7. She was always clinging on me at the gym and I'd be carrying her around. And then like now she's a teenager. And so like I took a picture like and put the two next to each other. It was like, holy crap. Like it's wild.
It's family.
Yeah. They're my family, man. And so like trying to establish that here, it like, because I was on a boat first and then I stayed for shore duty. That never really happened. And it was like, it probably would have happened right when I came off the boat, but then I got sick. And so then cancer happened. And so it was like, I never got to start doing it. And then I had this other giant problem and then everything kind of just melted down. But yeah, I think it was a combination of a lot of things, but I think the community aspect of that and then the talking, just like recognition that it's a problem and being able to talk about it as that those are probably the things that help the most. Cause it's still an issue, but like I'm in a way better place, like way better. So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, man.
That's how I felt when I found jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah. It's, and yeah, that like, I do better when my doc, he's an IDC corpsman that like, whatever the Marine Raiders or whatever they were called before. He was an FMF corpsman with those guys doing like the crazy like Marine Special Forces stuff. And so he was talking about like how when he was doing stuff like that, or when he was on a submarine after that, or whatever, he's like, we're really highly strung people. And when you're wound that tight on a boat, or when you're out doing this other stuff, like you have somewhere to put that anxiety, like you put it into the mission, like all that being wound that tight, you got somewhere to direct that energy. He goes, now you're sitting in an office, like, and with a lot of downtime. And because I was sick, I wasn't working out, and so I had nowhere to direct that energy. He's like, when you do that, because he was one of the guys that convinced me to go see a mental health professional because he had done it. And he was just like, dude, I'm telling you, it'll help. And it was, he explained it in a really great way where he was just like, you need somewhere to put that energy and you don't have that right now. And that's why it's like, so it's going to come out somehow, and it's like not going to be good if you don't have a good direction to direct that energy in. And so that was kind of what like got me to believe it, was like, this dude, he's just awesome. He's a good friend. And so I was like, okay, I get it.
I think with also like that energy that you talk about, like we see that so much in the Navy where, you know, you go by the smoke pit and you just even listening to some of the stories you hear in the smoke pit, it's almost like a Indiana Jones like movie where there's just like this adventure, and there's stories that they're telling, and mainly, you know, some could be true, but a lot of it just sounds like laziness, or they hit a roadblock in their life and they failed to attempt to jump over that roadblock. They have an unhealthy life. They hang around unhealthy people, and it just kind of, it spreads, and then you get into a workplace and then it spreads even more. And that's what I challenge my junior sailors with, is put yourself around people that are going to challenge you. Put yourself around people that your friends should be the ones calling you out. Your friends are the ones that are telling you, no, you're jacking up right now. No, you're not living a good lifestyle. No, you're not being real with yourself. Not these people that enable bad behavior or enable bad decisions. And I feel like that's where we're at as not just as a Navy, but the mess as well. I feel like there's so many people that, because they've been in the Navy longer, they're jaded, right? They've had so many crappy situations in their life, whether it be a relationship or workspace or the cards that they were dealt in life, like, and they're so bitter and angry. And then when you're around them, they want to tell you about each one of those things. And you're like, hey man, like, I have a really good thing. You know, let's go for a run. Let's forget all this. Oh no, I don't want to run. Like, I can't. Well, why can't you run? Oh, I have a problem with my ankle. All right, well, let's go to medical. Let's get you checked out. No, I don't want to. And you're like, you're not doing anything to make yourself better.
And how much of that do you think is related to like so as an organization, so like just the entire Navy, as an organization, we prioritize the mission, which like of course we do, it makes sense, and that's always going to come first. But in trying to accomplish that, we've structured a lot of things in a way that treat sailors like they're consumables, and it's
100%.
And it's like, so you arrive at this place where you don't feel valued, where you don't think that it's important for like you to take care of your own health. You don't feel like it's important for you to, like, mental health, physical health. You don't think it's important for you to work out. You don't think it's important for you to do all those other things, because all that matters is the mission. And it's like, you're structured in, it's structured in a way that like that's almost become socially acceptable within the construct of the social construct of the Navy, like the work environment. It's just like, that's just what we do. And so, I mean, I've sat in these meetings where we're constructing a plan of the week and no thought is put into like, okay, well, when are they going to get time off? Like, when are they going to get to sleep when we're on deployment? Like, when are they going to get to have any downtime at all? And even the higher level understanding of like, I want my sailors to be well trained and like to be steely eyed killers of the deep. But I also, like, in order to accomplish that, I also need them to be happy and well rested and physically fit. And it's like, so how we've lost the recognition of like all of those other things that we need to program in so that it's sustainable, instead of just treating them like I'm just going to use this person up and then they either separate or become a bitter, angry chief, you know, like, and I find it really hard to wrap my mind around like, how did we get here? Why are we doing this? It's illogical to me. So like, how much of that attitude and unwillingness to act do you think is tied up in that?
Yep. I think it's a lot. And I think that if you cannot because a work day underway is usually 12 hours, right? You usually have your 12 hours on, 12 hours off. But if you can't get your work done within 12 hours with work, I mean, training, PT, warfare device training, works in a soup, 3M, et cetera, like there's something wrong with your leadership.
Right.
There's something wrong with, you mean to tell me whether a Divo, 3 chiefs, or depending on how big your workspace is, you guys can't develop a plan to fit all this in within a certain time frame?
Right.
No, they don't need to be here forever. We're seeing a result of, with these collisions at sea, we're seeing a result of lack of sleep. We're seeing a result of lack of rest, a lack of physical ability to maintain under longer situations.
Right.
And people can be mad at my stance all they want, but science proves the better shape you're in, the longer and more effective you're going to be in a bad situation. And I think we lose that mindset. We want to work. Why are we doing this? What is the long-term effect of this? What is the goal of what we're doing here? You mean to tell me we can't spread out our fire drills over the course of a week? A fire drill is going to be more important than GMT training.
Yeah.
Let's throw the GMT training to the side. The ship is going to go on if we don't finish our GMT within the fiscal year.
Yeah, if you don't verify your NFAS, nothing's going to explode.
Oh my God, I forgot to do my IA training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do your information assurance or we cannot get underway.
Right.
Let's prioritize what's important, what is realistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I 100% agree with you, because but what was strange about it is I was sitting in a room full of people that didn't agree with me. And and I'm the only voice in the room going, hey, do we really need to do that? And then oh, hey, when are these people going to sleep? Like, it was just like, we're not getting shot at right now. And that's awesome. So let's take advantage of that and structure everything in a way that we're preparing for that eventuality, so that when it happens, people can function at a high level with minimal sleep and under high levels of stress. But like right now, I feel like we're burning the candle at both ends, functioning at a high level of stress with no sleep, in bad physical condition, like not eating well and all this crap. And it's like, we're not even fighting anyone. We're just fighting our inability to plan.
And when you said that, how many people in the room were quick to say, "Oh, when I was coming up, we did this all day." You know what I mean? And then
I don't
you're
even
like,
want to hear it, because I did too. That doesn't make it right. Like,
exactly. And then you look at that person, and they're 40 pounds overweight.
Yeah.
They're craving a cigarette.
Yeah.
They probably got a Monster or a Reign in their hand.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, look at you.
Yeah.
You're stressed out. You stayed up all day.
Right.
You reach out to unhealthy habits to cope with unhealthy planning.
Yeah.
And now look at you.
Right.
We're trying to avoid this.
Right.
So when there is a real fire, or when our adversaries do rock our submarine with a torpedo, we know what we can do and we can handle it.
Right. And that you can push the envelope, like,
yes,
you know what I mean? Because that's the time to do it. Like my brother was a flight deck guy during the not Iraqi freedom, during when we first went to Afghanistan. Like, he deployed September 12th, 2001, and went over there. And I mean, he was on the flight deck during the initial invasion, like 18 hours a day or some crazy stuff. Like, he was telling us stories about just like how they barely slept, or they slept on the flight deck because they were launching and recovering so many planes. And it's just like, but we were at war. So it's like like, we're going to demand that of those people in that scenario. Like, I get that. Like, I understand we got to get this plane up right now because there's guys on the ground that need air support. Okay. Understand all. Like, let's do it. But when we're not, it's like, why are these people not getting any sleep? Like, we should want them to be in the best possible mental state, and like as healthy as they could possibly be and as fit as they could possibly be and ready to go, so that when that demand signal comes for us to push the envelope, that we're ready and capable of doing that. And it's just like, we don't as a sea service don't take that seriously almost universally.
Definitely. We definitely don't.
Yeah. Kills me, man. I feel like we're coming to a natural conclusion, man. Like, you got anything else we didn't talk about that you want to?
No, man, just I want people to really be able to own where they're at. If it doesn't work for you, cool. I honestly, I deep down in my heart really do hope people find something that makes them happy and can live a happy life. We're seeing what mental health does to people. If you take my slogan as fat shame, and I apologize, I'm really just trying to push this envelope of where we're at as a fighting force. If people are one, if they're in the San Diego area and they need help, they want training, please reach out to me. I have so many options to train and a platform to train that I want to utilize it. If they're not in the San Diego area and they want to reach out to me, they can reach out. My Instagram handle is KRM041586. That's my personal one. And then of course, No Fat Chiefs for my brand. And then on Facebook, Kevin Murphy. It'll be myself and my dog Brady on the cover if they need to find me. If people need help, they want to reach out of where, if they're overseas, if they're stationed somewhere, the great power of the mess is knowing people all over.
Right.
And there's so many chiefs that do love to work out and are inspired by fitness and also have been in bad places themselves and have made it. So reach out. I'd love to help you guys out. I'm not a nutritionist, so I can't put you on a diet plan, but I can give you tips.
Yeah.
I'm here to help. I'm here to make us ready for whatever fight comes our way, and I hope people hear it, and I hope they take it to heart and can make a change in their life.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll put all that in the show notes too. So if anybody wants to click the link and get a hold of you, they can do that.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, dude. This was awesome. I appreciate your time.
It was a great experience.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I definitely did. I had a lot of fun talking to him. Where he's probably going to be on again. So stand by for that. And then if you need to get a hold of him, I put his social media contact information that he mentions at the very end of the podcast in the show notes as well. So if you need to reference back to that, if you want to get a hold of him, if you're in the San Diego area or any other area and you want to link up with him and for some advice on fitness stuff or some kind of direction in that regard, he's definitely open to that, as he said. And then, it was fun. I like being surprised by people. And that's why I mentioned Christina during the podcast as well, is like just I make a snap judgment about somebody and I like being wrong. I like getting to find out that people are a lot more complex than you often think, and their motivations for doing things generally come from a great place. And so I thought that this was kind of another example of that, and it was fun. I'm glad I did it, and I'm definitely glad that I now have a relationship with Chief Murphy. I think that he's adding a lot of value in some significant ways, especially with sailors that didn't previously encounter a chief they wanted to be, which is something I've talked about in the past, and now they have, and that's big. It's a big deal. That's a very significant leadership accomplishment, and I think it's awesome. As always, if you need anything from us, hit us up. Don'tGiveUpTheShitPodcast@gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up the Shit Podcast, or you can hit us up on Instagram or Reddit. You can slide into our DMs and on Discord at DGUTS or just DGUTS Podcast on Reddit. And I think you can add us on at DGUTS Podcast on Discord. I don't know. I think that's how you do it, but it's new. So yeah, check us out there if you want to link up or reach out or whatever. Post a podcast on Reddit so you can discuss there. And then if you would like, share, subscribe, review on all the platforms for all the things, leave us a review on iTunes or whatever platform you're using to listen to your podcasts. And then just share the content on social media. It helps us get the word out, and I really appreciate it. And that's it. That's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship.